Don't mind me, I just rolled out of bed to deliver this message. In the previous reading, we were talking about the Sphinx, and there was a message coming through about the Sphinx. And in a reading that I did on my other channel, It's Tarot and Beyond, on the members side, there was a pick a card using the Sacred Symbols Oracle deck that brought through a message of the Divine Triple Goddess. And I was seeing that triple moon symbol receding. I didn't mean to say receding. I meant to say repeating. Okay, so like a receding moon, a phase. We were talking about waxing on and waxing off in that reading as well. The stages of the moon, or stages of development. We do have the moon card here, which we'll get to, but I'm still trying to put this message together. So kind of bear with me as I try to work through this with you here together. But they were showing me the Sphinx. They were showing me the Akashic Library and records. They were showing me past life soul history. And they were showing me Thoth, homies, rolling with the homies. They were showing me Hermes Trismegistus and the Sphinx. And now they're showing me Hecate, however you want to pronounce it. And I was brought to this video, which I will pop the image of on screen, and I'll try to link it in the description box below if you're curious and you want to watch it. And it's about why we fear Hecate, what she represents, and also like her great power. I've not worked too much with Hecate in the past. She's come through a couple of times in different readings, and she's worked with me kind of behind the scenes a little bit. But more of that sort of very dualistic, fierce, protector type energy of the divine feminine that I've worked with personally has been Sekhmet and Kali. So those two were the ones that came through the strongest. Now Hecate seems like a third part of that triple goddess structure in these different goddess archetypes. And she's wanting to bring through a message of embodiment, or the understanding of the bridge between these worlds of light and dark, the bridge between the physical reality and the non-physical reality, the spirit realm, the above world, the underworld, and every world in between. She's the boundless one. And there was a message in the last reading about the Sphinx that came through where it was like these boundaries are falling away between you and your past life selves, or there's no more limits anymore. And this is directly speaking to what I was then shown today about Hecate and how her power is boundless, and she's able to traverse through all of these different realms. She also represents the crossroads, and she holds the keys and the torches. And we had keys here on the Hierophant card, which I'll talk about. The torches were a reference that came up in some previous readings, both on this channel, the Divine Channel, and also on It's Tarot and Beyond. They were bringing through messages about torch bearers, torch holders, passing the torch. There was symbolism in the Sphinx reading about some of you are the torch, some of you are the match, some of you are the kindling, some of you are the protectors of the elements to keep the fire lit. There were so many different references to the fire. And the element of fire has been coming through in a lot of the recent readings as well. So I'm now realizing that this is connected to Hecate and to the power that she holds to illuminate things that are cast in darkness or shadow. And I bet you I'm going to split it. Oh, magic. Okay. I was like, I bet you I'm going to split this deck right now and it'll be the shadow card, because that kept happening over and over. But we've got magic. She is the ruler of magic. She's the patron saint of witchcraft and magic. So this actually is more to what Hecate is bringing through anyway. But I do feel, and the knife, I learned from that video that I shared there, that she also rules daggers because they represent release. They represent her ability to sever ties or to cut boundaries, to cut things out. So we're talking about the power of Hecate here. The other thing they wanted me to mention, and that they've been bringing this through for months now, has been prophecy. Some kind of a prophecy. And I initially thought that they were talking about a prophecy for the collective, which I think on one level of this they are, but on another level, this prophecy is more personal. I'm hearing interpersonal. So this does have to do with you and another person, or you and the people in the group that you're in, maybe even like your culture. The point being was that there was prophecy involved in whatever this is that's wanting to come through or trying to come through over the course of several months now. And I'm still just, like I said, picking up these pieces and trying to figure out how they fit together. And until I have all the pieces, I won't necessarily know what it's spelling out or what it's teaching us or what I'm meant to share about it, or even embody, because they keep saying the word embody. So embodying that energy of Hecate, embodying that power, that magic, that wisdom, that ferocity, they just said the intangible being made manifest. Yes, but also where I'm confused, or where I want clarity, is around what this is trying to bring forth, or what is this that we're meant to embody? What is this meant to look like? And why is this important? So this prophecy keeps being mentioned. And as I said, I do feel like it is at a collective level on one plane of existence. It is going to impact the world. But the way that I'm seeing it, the way that they're bringing it through, is more like a prophecy that you signed up for or are involved in some way, that will then have a ripple effect out into the larger world. So each one of you, including myself, we all have like a different part to play in this prophecy, or there's individual prophecies that are linked to us that we subjectively signed up for pre-incarnation and we knew about. It was foretold. Who foretold this? I don't know. But it was foretold. They keep making that very, very clear, and that it will have an impact on the greater population, the world at large, the world in general. These flowers are moving. Anyway. Next, we had the Hierophant, the keeper of keys and the keeper of wisdom. And I feel like maybe even something to do with the Vatican could be significant. I just looked at the fish on his head and it reminded me of the connection between, like, I don't even know. Okay. I don't know enough about this to speak on it, but I do remember watching a video years ago, and they were talking about how the fish hat of some old society or some old culture that like worshipped fish beings, they wore those fish hats, and then that kind of boiled down into the Pope hat that we see today. If anybody knows anything about that, or you can link some videos to that or something, can you put that in the comments below? Because I would love to kind of refresh my mind on what the heck that was talking about. But that's just what popped out at me. So it must be significant or connected in some way. The world, maybe this is to do with religion, spirituality, magic, and the understanding of the shadow, or the collective shadow, understanding of our connections to the psyche, I'm hearing. And they're showing me the moon card, which is sitting underneath the Hierophant. So the psyche, understanding our connection to the collective unconscious. Carl Jung's work has always fascinated me, because that was really primarily what he went into. He looked at it from a scientific standpoint of understanding the psychology behind it, but he really dove even deeper into the esoteric understanding of the collective archetypes of the unconscious, and how those impacted us as individuals and the process of individuation. The anima and animus could also be significant. We did a reading about that on the member side of the channel, once again on It's Tarot and Beyond. I've also noticed that in many of my previous readings, or at least in the past couple of ones that I've edited, I keep saying again, once again, or and again. So I keep repeating this message of repetition, like I'm saying it again. So again, to reiterate, and once again, let me say this. And so it feels like this is connected, because whenever that kind of thing starts coming through in readings, it is like it's part of like the I just heard overlord. Okay. I was trying to say overarching, the overarching message. Overlord, and I'm holding the devil card in my hand. Okay, so maybe this is talking about the collective devil that resides within the unconscious and the sphere that we have of the shadow or of the darkness or of the duality. I'm hearing menacing nature, maybe the fear that we have of the menacing nature, not just of the things that we don't understand, like the spirit realm, but also of humanity itself. Because everything is a mirror, and like attracts like. It's based on vibrational matching and magnetism, the law of magnetics, the law of correspondence. Something about the law of connection is also important here. They're talking about law of connection. So there's something that we're all connected to, being part of this collective soup. The unconscious human collective mind is stewed or steeped in this devil energy. And we're kind of with the help of Hecate being guided into this underworld or into these darker shadow realms, with her holding that torch, or really us embodying that aspect of her as part of the prophecy. Because these goddesses, these archetypes, the devil, God, angels, demons, they are not something outside of you. They are manifest and they do exist. But when we're looking at this from a unified perspective, everything is one. And so you are those things. They're not separate from you. They're not outside of you. That's just one perspective of it. That's one viewpoint. But when you look at it from the true viewpoint, which is always the unified whole, that's another thing they were showing me, was something about the unified theory of everything. Christ consciousness is part of this as well. The unified theory of everything, whether we're looking at it from a scientific perspective, an esoteric perspective, or a religious perspective, all of these hold spiritual truth within them. And it just depends on how we're looking at it, based on how we're going to interpret it or how we're going to perceive it. But they're talking here about understanding this darkness, or the collective unconscious, and the depths within it that we're afraid to traverse into. Hecate is not afraid. She is the boundless one. She is the limitless one. And so she will boldly go where no man or woman has gone before or feared to tread. And she will guide us with those torches to shed light onto the areas within that darkness that need to be uncovered. I'm hearing the word rehashed. So something needs to be rehashed, and that's why they were bringing through again. So this feels like something that we're doing over again, something that maybe we tried to do in the past and it failed, or it didn't, not that it failed, it didn't work out in the outcome that was expected or intended. It may have resulted in death. And if we're talking about your specific past lives, then this is going to be, you tried to understand these things in previous lifetimes, but I'm hearing to no avail. I'm seeing references to angels and the Bible. I'm seeing references to energy work. Qigong specifically is coming through. That's a random reference that's popping in. But there was something that you attempted to master in a previous lifetime, but were ultimately unsuccessful. However, you planted the seeds for this lifetime. So there really is no failure in any lifetime. It's kind of spread out over time and space. And we enter into these different incarnations to play out these things over a much longer span of time than our current human perspective really can grasp. So this is the unconscious space. This is that moon energy, and the fear of death could be part of this, or the death cycles could be part of this. I keep hearing entering into the underworld. And this brings me to the message, which I actually forgot to say in the beginning, which was the reason I actually sat down to do this reading in general. When I was having my coffee about 20 minutes ago, I heard the dark bringer of the dawn. The dark bringer of the dawn, while I was watching that Hecate video. And it felt almost like my mind associated the bringer of the dawn with Lucifer, Luciferian energy. We do have the devil here. Because in translating his name, it literally means light bringer. But he, in the stories or in the mythology in the Bible, is the fallen angel. And what is humanity if not fallen angels? An entire collective of fallen angels. And those who have chosen to incarnate into this realm choose to fall of their own spiritual soul level free will. Why? Because we want to explore those underworlds. We want to explore the underbelly. That was another word that they used in one of the previous readings. They said the collective underbelly. And what is the underbelly? It's where we're most vulnerable in some ways. Dogs will show the belly to show submissiveness, or when they're afraid, when something feels more powerful than them. The dark underbelly is something that is hidden or unseen, and it's also that point of vulnerability. This is the shadow, the collective shadow. And so we're having to have the strength to venture into the realms of that collective shadow, to witness our own weaknesses, to explore our points of vulnerability, these trigger points or wounds, deeply held fears, stigmas, pain itself, the idea of us versus them, victim victor, or victim perpetrator. We really have to explore all of these things and ask ourselves, why is this here? What are we learning from this? How am I embodying this unconsciously or consciously? How can I work with this energy? Because the Hierophant is the teacher and it holds the keys. Hecate holds the keys to this knowledge, to this wisdom, to this information that we need to be able to not become that which we fear, or to at least not be ruled by it. We can become that darkness, but not let that darkness rule over us or have power over us. We don't have to become victim to the darkness. We have to integrate it. We have to understand it. We have to rise above it while still keeping it in our line of sight. That's what they just showed me. It was like and I heard a quote earlier this week, which is now becoming relevant. You don't escape your demons. You just learn to live above them. So this is talking about vibration and frequency, and how when we descend into these lower realms of consciousness and we experience the immersion into the pain, the suffering, the violence, the trauma, the scary things, the darkness, the lack of consciousness, the losing of ourselves, that experience fundamentally at the breaking point of separation. We have to reclaim our sovereignty. We have to understand the nature of free will. We have to understand the natures of consciousness, the laws of the universe. We have to really kind of work back from where we were to begin with to reclaim these parts of the self and become whole. Because even though we came from higher points of consciousness and then fell, it does not necessarily mean that we did so without reason or good. They're saying something about good guarding or good guardians, and they're showing me unicorns. So something about the descent from pure consciousness into the distorted or separate perspective, and why that's important or pivotal in the role of collective human consciousness and awakening. It's part of the 11. I meant to say evolution. Okay, 11. They have been showing me a lot of 1111s and 111 sequences recently. Also 1717. Which equals 88. The strength card being number 8. They just said food for thought, and they're showing me a banquet. They're showing me how there were festivals dedicated to worshiping certain gods or goddesses, both light and dark, for good reason and for ill, and how food was offered as an offering, as a gesture of payment, really, for a blessing or protection or a curse from whatever god or archetype or entity or being that these people were coming to. And I'm hearing the word humble, coming to as humble servants of. Okay, we have I'm just dipping into this other deck now. We have the 3 of Athens. What's really standing out to me is actually the swan swimming in the lake in front of her. And it's reminding me of the Swan Princess and how in that story she's cursed to transform into a swan every, night or day. And then she becomes human again. So there's an aspect here of transformation or transmogrification that needs to be addressed. Something about changing forms and how this is part of the descent. It's like when we identify with the physical structure or the changing of the physical form into 3D matter, we start to lose the perspective or the awareness of our true state of being, of our consciousness. We have the 4 of Pentacles. On the outside looking in, she's kind of peering in through this doorway, and I heard through the dark way. Instead of doorway, it wanted to come out as dark way. Again, we're talking about the shadow here. There were references in this weekend that I was seeing connected to the tunnel of light. When we die and we exit the body, oftentimes NDEers will report back that they saw a dark tunnel with a pinprick of very bright light at the other end. And it's kind of like this wormhole or this portal that we go through, this bridge between the worlds. Death and the world are sitting right on top of each other. Yeah. So this is kind of what we're talking about here. It's like this collective, the miasma that we have to either exit through or enter through. And when we enter through it, we fall from grace, or in the sense that we fall from consciousness, we fall from our whole powerful self. We separate intentionally to understand these lower realms and to have these experiences. There's a part of the self that's looking in from the outside right now, and they're saying through a portal darkly, something about that dark portal. What is this that we're talking about here, and why is this important? Hecate is coming through strongly. Why is this important? What are we talking about? She's saying the dark portal beckons. Eight of Wands. She's saying something about, can you repeat that? She said, lowly travelers, the dark portal beckons. The way is made clear for those who seek to find what they shall no longer wish to inhabit. Though there are municipalities and singularities within that one, there are also monsters that can be found in the mightiest of places. Many will fall to the darkness unknowing of their true nature and will find their way back only within the constructs of their current reality. Be at peace in this knowing. Prosperity follows those who seek to find and shall find within themselves. Peace be with you in the name of the One. Okay, so that was like direct channel. And now I'm kind of just processing what was coming through there. And I'm seeing also references to home in this card. There's one card here I haven't looked at yet. I'm just going to set it down so I don't forget it. But in this card, in the Three of Athame, she's moving towards the home. And it looks like the windows were boarded up. So she's maybe like making it a home once again. And in this card, he's in the home and he's created a sense of stability, but there's someone on the outside looking in, possibly envious or in need of help. I'm not sure the context, and I'm going to ask, but I'm also noticing that the turtle here, which is, he carries the home on his back. So I'm going to have to rewatch that channeling, because when I do a direct channel like that, I don't remember anything that was said. It's hard enough when I'm like doing an in-between channel like I do in these readings, because I'm in like this altered state where I'm kind of in between. So it's a lot harder to like grasp onto very physical points. But, oh, right. The Eight of Wands. We did look at that. Okay. So the Eight of Wands here, they're pointing me to the knife. She's got all these wands, but she also has this knife right there. And it feels like this is important because it is the sharp mind and the ability to choose or to sever some kind of a tie. They're talking about cutting ties, and they're showing me she's got some fishing line there as well, right down by her knee. It's like she pulled it out of her pocket, a divine gift, and they're showing me a silver cord. That's the astral cord between the astral body and the physical body that ties us to life, literally that ties us to life. And she's talking about cutting the cord. And now I'm seeing the scene in, okay, that's weird. I was trying to say the scene in Hercules when the fates, the three fates, again, the number 3, these divine feminine archetypes linked to sorcery or black magic or anything like that, are trying to cut his lifeline, but they can't because he's an immortal. He's a god, and it glows gold instead of silver. But as I was trying to say Hercules, Harry Potter wanted to come out. So there could be something to do. Well, he has the resurrection stone and he dies, but is resurrected, and he dies to be able to get rid of that entity, that piece of Voldemort that was inhabiting him. So if we look at this archetypally, Voldemort being the devil, and in the Hercules version, it's Hades. A part of that inhabits us. In Hercules, it's that he's made mortal, like 99% mortal, 1% immortal. And it's only through his sacrifice that he's able to completely return to his immortality. In Harry Potter, it's the same thing. He makes that sacrifice. He dies in a way knowing that he'll resurrect because he's getting rid of that darkness. And I did mention Christ consciousness, and now this is all coming together. It's like he died for your sins. There's a sacrifice that is made to remove some aspect of the darkness because there's a known process of regeneration, repair, and resurrection that will occur. Now, there's a part of me, as the human version of me, that is questioning this and going, well, why would there need to be a sacrifice? That feels ominous. That feels kind of questionable to me. That feels like trickery of the devil, because the devil is a trickster in his essence, in that energy. And there's something about being able to see through the trickery to be able to understand past the illusion. And I think it's not so much about the action of sacrifice itself. It's about the understanding of the knowing of immortality. It's also about the intention behind it. Because if there's a sacrifice that's made out of pain and suffering and victimhood, then that's going to be linked to that devil, that shadow energy, and that's going to be disempowering. However, if we make intentional sacrifices based on a place of complete acceptance, understanding with no regret, because we are aware of our immortality, so it's not really a sacrifice at all, then what we're doing holds a high vibration of empowerment. It does not stand in the victimhood energy. It stands and vibrates with purpose, with power, with passion. And they're showing me the world card being significant to this. So something about how we're here to serve the world. I'm hearing humble servants again, how we're here to serve the world. And they're showing me the difference between a humble servant who is a slave versus a humble servant who has chosen that role to be of service because it is gratifying. And though it takes great strength and much learning, it is worth every penny invested, because all energy invested into that pays out in dividends over time. What I mean by that is, like, let's say, for example, you were incarnated into a lifetime where you sacrificed a part of your consciousness to attain some kind of understanding of the shadow, i.e., you incarnated into a lifetime where you really lacked consciousness of yourself as a divine being and your power, and you entered into, somewhat intentionally, these dark contracts. Dark stages of development, they're saying. That's the way they're saying it. Dark stages of development. And that itself is the sacrifice. It's not like you're literally being sacrificed on some kind of like a Mayan thing to the gods. No. That's not the sacrifice I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about literally being crucified. That could be something to work through. This could be like the victimizer, the perpetrator, the persecution imprint that needs to be understood and worked out of. But at this higher level, it's like the soul is going, okay, I'm going to choose to descend into these darker realms and lose parts of myself. They will die to me effectively. Because if you're an immortal being and you cannot physically die, if you are energy and you are everything, there is no such thing as death. And so the only true death is the separation from the self, or the forgetting. So that was the sacrifice that you made coming into this world. And this is part of the prophecy, they're saying. It's part of the prophecy. I'm hearing master teachers coming back to life. So this could be a process of reincarnation where there's a series of souls that are incarnating, or waves of souls even, that are incarnating into this world that hold a higher consciousness and are helping us to return or retrieve that, to remember that. Part of this is your duty as well. If you're on this channel and you're listening to this message and you're resonating with it, this is also part of you embodying that principle. So it's being reborn through you without you needing to die and then come back and reincarnate in a new body. You can do it right here, right now. And I'm not talking about like walk-in type situations. I'm talking about spiritual growth in the sense that your soul and your consciousness at the human level are evolving to incorporate and to understand the intricate connection between all of these different aspects of you, these archetypes in the collective unconscious, and the power that they hold in the form of these gods, goddesses, angels, demons, etc. So being able to work with that consciously by doing this shadow work is part of this ascension cycle, or part of this, they're saying something about a program, the Ascension program. Okay, I've never heard it referred to that way. What? Okay, they said, think about it like a simulation, which I've also been thinking a lot about, the idea of this reality being a simulation. And they were like, if this is a simulation, then there's programs that are being run. There can be viruses within those programs, or those programs may need updates, but it's a program nonetheless. And the program that we're running here is it's connected to the prophecy. The prophecy would be actually the intention behind the program. It's what the program is meant to do. I've also been hearing or seeing references or synchronicities to the ghost in the machine. I'm still going to need to explore more of what that means. It's directly connected to references of AI and how AI can gain consciousness. But when we're talking about here in terms of the collective ascension, human evolution, service to humanity, the dark and light, all of these dualities that we're exploring within this realm, I think that the ghost in the machine is more so the unconsciousness within the matrix itself. And as each individual cell bit of data, which is what we are bits of data. We're like, in the machine, we are those pieces of code. If we're looking at it from a biological standpoint, the human body would be an example of the machine, and the cells would be an example of what we are in terms of this matrices, this universe, this world, however you want to kind of look at the larger scale of that, the macro. On the micro level, we are builders, creators, participants. We are part of that entity, that great being, that machine, that program, that whatever you want to call it. And so in this reality, what we're doing is looking at and understanding the entire program as one point in it. And so we're experiencing simultaneously the microcosm and the macrocosm, the subjective and the much larger scale of what's going on here. And what they want us to be aware of is the understanding of this program, because it's with the understanding of the program that we can start to influence it from the inside, that we can change it. They were bringing through references of lucid dreaming, and astral projection. They were talking about telepathy as well, specifically in autism and autistic individuals, neurodivergent individuals, and they're saying they just said the mouths of the voiceless. They were also showing me references to blind people and the eyes of the sightless. Okay, wow. The mouths of the voiceless and the eyes of the sightless. Interesting phrasing. I want to dig into that a little bit. Feels like when we evolve the senses to a higher plane of perception, we no longer need the physical aspect to be able to interact with that thing. So for example, autistic people, non-communicators, not needing the mouth to communicate because they can communicate in more advanced ways, telepathically. And blind people, not saying that they don't need their eyes. I'm sure they would like to have their sight back if they could, if it was an option. But being able to see through the third eye, you don't need the physical eyes anymore. And they're showing me now, I'm seeing, and they said monsters of the deep, and they're showing me like these blob fish, or like these lamplighter fish that exist in these really dark, very dense points in the ocean at deep, deep, deep depths, and how they don't need eyes, and they have mouths obviously, but there's something about like not needing those sensory organs that are not relevant within that depth or within that realm. So when we're talking about the depth of the third dimensional realm being so dense and heavy, it's kind of like the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Like it's so deep down, it's so dark there that you don't really need those extrasensory organs because you can't see anyway. But these are coming back online now, and we're evolving and we're adapting and we're maneuvering and we're coming up, or we're gaining buoyancy in some way, or we're getting elevation in terms of the available connections that we have energetically. And it's fast. It's like a fast rise. And so we have to make sure that, okay, now they're showing me a scuba diver with that airline, and they're showing me an overlay of that with the example of the astral cord. So that silver line, the silver cord, it's like you've dove all the way down and the pressure is like crushing you, but you're needing to understand or document these species that have evolved in such a way within the darkness to suit them. Another reference that came up in one of the readings was like the sea monsters or the krakens hidden within the dark realms. And I was talking about that in terms of like trauma. When I looked at my own trauma and I had to revisit it and process it, it manifested visually to me as an imagery of like a very dark black water and this monster rising up out of it. That's what it looked like to me. And it was funny because then somebody commented on that video saying, holy shit, I was seeing that as well. And you referencing that in this reading was like direct confirmation, like Spirit is speaking so loud and clear as they do. Right? It's always through these synchronicities that we get the confirmation of what we're seeing and what we're learning through. But that's what it looked like to me. So it feels like there's a surfacing of some of these like monsters from within the deep, and we're having to not be afraid of them or reject them or push them away and say, you gross. We're having to kind of hold them and look at them and study them and understand them, because these are offshoots of the self. These are parts of the self, or maybe even we've become a part of that, because when you descend into something, you do have to embody it to a certain degree. But there is a rise in consciousness, and there's an understanding of this separation between this point here and this point here. They were also showing me references to time and space, time dilation, time distortions, timelines, parallel realities, parallel universes. They were showing me stuff to do with multi-world theory. Again, astral projection, and that dark portal. Okay, they're bringing me back to that again. They just showed me that tunnel, the dark tunnel that leads to the light. And I had somebody ask me this weekend, what about like the reincarnation loop? Is that a real thing? Are we supposed to turn away from the light and not walk down that tunnel or that corridor upon death? And I think that is such a complex question that Spirit is wanting us to explore within ourselves, because I think it's going to vary from person to person, what feels right for them. Whether reincarnation is something that would serve the evolution of the soul, or even if de-evolution would serve the evolution of the soul, ironically, paradoxically. If there is a trick at play or at hand that is keeping you stuck in these cycles or patterns of karma used against your free will at the higher level, using your fallen consciousness against you, that's a trick of the devil. It's usually through the unconscious that he operates. Like, he'll give you some information, not that the devil is a he, but I'm just using this for simplification purposes. Using your lack of awareness against you to consent to something that you normally wouldn't consent to at a higher level. If you had the full awareness of what you were getting yourself into, it's kind of like these agreements. And I'm hearing something about non-disclosure agreement. Oh, and they're showing me ripping up a contract. And now they're showing me again the cutting of that cord and the freedom at the soul level. Something about ripping up a contract, a non-disclosure agreement where you weren't able to have some information disclosed to you, and now you're able to retrieve that or have that awareness. And through that, it's severing some kind of an attachment. Now, I don't think that this is a cord of life and death, although we do have the death card here. This feels like something in the unconscious mind with the moon that was keeping you tethered to some of these lower realms. The embodiment of the frequency of the lower realms. Okay, so now you're gaining awareness of them so that you can walk into the underworld and not become it. Or you can become it, but not have it consume you. Or not be consumed by it. You can hold that frequency and not have it destroy you. And they're showing me the scene in Avatar, The Last Airbender, the show, where I almost just wanted to call him Ankh. That's not his name. But the Ankh also came up in the previous readings the Sphinx reading specifically. I'm blanking on his name. It just keeps coming through as Ankh. So anyway, the main character, the last bender of all the elements, is able to take on the darkness from his enemy And rather than having it consume him, he takes it on, integrates it, and uses that power. He transmutes that power in essence and blasts out even more light to take away the power of the enemy. If you know, you know. So this is a process of transmutation of the shadow to recall or reclaim the power to be able to choose. And to take away the power from those who wield their choice without consciousness. Interesting. Okay. They're showing me the crossroads again and how Hecate rules over the crossroads. And they're also showing me that tunnel into the light, the dark tunnel into the light. That is the crossroads point. It's the crossroads of all crossroads is what I just heard. So this is that point in time when we get to choose. And I think that's that whole point that I was trying to make there with the reincarnation loop. And do you exit the matrix or do you come back in? It's a point of choice. And I think the reason behind why we make choices is more important than the choices themselves. The energy signature of the choice is much more important than the choice or the action itself. It's the intention behind it. And that doesn't mean that we can get away with doing things that are wrong because we were thinking about doing something right. That's not what I'm saying. And that's also coming from a very low vibrational dualistic mindset. Because when you get into unity consciousness, it's hard to describe it from a third dimensional perspective because it's paradoxical from this vantage point. But when you get up there and you look at it from the top down, it's so much more clear. So I'm doing my best to try and describe it, but essentially we have to choose and we get to choose. We get to choose. Let's reframe it. We don't have to choose. We get to choose. And isn't that a blessing? That's the freedom of the law of free will, which is what spawned the creation of a universe, of a reality, of a dimension that has darkness in it to begin with. Like we chose this. We chose this because we had the option to choose this. And that's the nature of freedom. That's the nature of free will. The great thing about that too is that we also have the process or the ability, the power to choose the light again. And we're doing so by integrating that shadow, by understanding that shadow, by playing it through, because that was the whole point in the beginning, wasn't it? That was the whole point of the creation of this reality, was to explore the darkness, the darker aspects of the self. However, back to the biology model, if this body is representative of the universe and we are cells within the body and that each individual has a completely different purpose, we've got stem cells, which can become anything. That's like the creator source, the primal force they're saying, or they said prima something. Primal force is what I'm translating it as, but they said prima materia is what they just said. Prima materia. Okay, I'll have to look that up after. But then there's the cells choose what they want to become. They become a white blood cell, they become a red blood cell, they become like a stomach cell, like whatever cell to make up the function of this body that is divinely ordered in such a way that it operates and functions at this larger scale. But if a cell warps and distorts and becomes a cell of consumption, then it has entered into the darkness of its own free will to do so. And that would be like cancer. And that cancer can spread to other cells. Life is contagious. Death is also contagious. Fear is contagious. So is love. It's our choice. Once that cell, if that cancer cell becomes, I'm hearing the word compassion. That's interesting. Having compassion for the cancer, because it is consuming from this place of emptiness. It is insatiable, and that is a painful place to be. So having compassion for the devil, it's reminding me of the song Sympathy for the Devil. Constantine also. But it's like if that cell threatens the whole, then the body has a choice to make. It can go in and provide the resources to stop the growth of that distorted cell, or it can make the ultimate sacrifice and let the entire body die, knowing that the spirit will evacuate, will be safe, that it will prevail. But then we had to start from scratch. And I wanted to say had. So this feels like it's already happened on some level. So in some alternate dimension, the entire universe fell to that darkness. And then it needed to be allowed to die. So that all of the energy, because there's no such thing as death, all of that energy could be removed from that. They're saying something about a substrate. That came through in a previous reading as well. I can't remember what it means. Something about layers, I think, from that layer, from that density. They're saying anima and animus. These are like the dual aspects of the divine feminine and divine masculine embodied within males and females could be explored. So there's, again, the duality could be explored in a different way that was more hospitable. They're saying something about less hostages, so that the consciousness wasn't being held hostage in these darker realms. And they're talking about freedom. So it's important that we had freedom from the downfall or the demise of these old systems, and that the energy within those was rehabilitated to be able to allow for continued evolution or growth in other realms. This feels like we're talking about the old earth and the new earth. That's kind of the sense I just got. But they're telling me that it goes beyond that. It's not, that's one part of the microcosm, and they're showing me the macrocosm at the galactic level. This spreads beyond the galaxy. This is like a universal thing. And there are multiple universes, but there were ones that were like neighboring beside each other. And they're showing me like cells attempting to merge, or the bridge between those two cells. The nucleus, and at the core of each one was something different. And they attempted to merge and to explore the opposites. So it's like there was a light universe and then there was a dark universe. They merged and they attempted to explore. The darkness attempted to take over the light universe, and then the light one had to make a choice as to what it was going to do. Was it going to come back and take back its power, almost in like this meta level reincarnation process of the entire universe's consciousness? Or was it going to let itself die in a sense, almost sounded like innocence, to lose that innocence and to play with the ideas of that dark reality or that dark universe with the merge? But again, they're showing me that like if that darkness spreads, it can become unmanageable, and so it needs to be countered because it goes against the order, the natural order of everything, which is that everything is one, and there is an awareness of that. And so any darkness that seeks to destroy itself needs to be countered, and that's where quarantine comes into effect. So what else are we supposed to know about this message? I feel like this has been... There's just so much to this that I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it, and I'm still trying to understand it. So I don't know if this is going to fully be something that we can understand from this level, but there's a lot in this that can be useful in the putting together of some of these other pieces. So keep that in mind. Okay, they said, I just heard, don't write off the old self. Don't write off the old self, whatever that means. Okay, I'm going to get one final card. They're saying color, and they're showing me the color purple. Oh, color. We have the green man. That's so funny. The green man. He's like the color green. And this is the Fool card in this deck. So, yeah, there's a new fresh start. I was just saying that innocence, the loss of that innocence, in a sensory experience. The pure experience is innocence. The distortion of those senses from a perspective of pain or suffering or victimhood, that's the loss of innocence. The green man feels like a refresh back to our base nature, our higher nature, the truth of who we are. This also feels like I'm hearing, okay, that's not what I was going to say. They said regurgitation. So there's something that's coming up again that needs to be seen, purified, cleansed. They're showing me that color purple. One of my previous videos here was about the indigos. That feels like it's connected. And this is control of the mind, they said, control of the mind. And they're showing me strength and focus being of utmost importance, because if we can control the mind, then we understand and have our power to not be restricted by outside forces, because the mind is what creates the reality. That's the power of the cell. And they're showing me the nucleus and the energy within that cell. Okay, 3 of Wands. I heard back on track as soon as I pulled this. We're back on track, or we're getting back on track. Okay. Final closing message. We have the crone, which in this card is the strength card. So we have that twice coming out. And I was talking about the triple goddess, which is maiden, mother, crone. Here we have the crone. So this is some ancient wisdom that it's taken a lot of strength for us to get back to, but it's been there for us to explore, and we're getting back on track with it. And having explored these darker aspects of the dualistic mindset, or of the different realities or dimensions, is helpful in gaining this level of understanding and breaking free from the slave matrix of mind, is what they just said. The slave matrix of mind. And they're saying Qigong again. So there's something about Qi, energy, life force, Reiki. The key is like the universal life force, understanding the life force, understanding the energy flow, understanding how focus, attention, and awareness controls that. And that's the strength that we're meant to master here, because that death process is a death of the body, not of the mind, not of the consciousness, not of the spirit. They're saying reclaim your power now. All will be shown in time. Okay. Cancer season and Leo season could be significant. Are those close together? Taurus. Cancer, Leo, Taurus. May, June, July. I think, if I'm correct, I'm May, June, July. So that chunk of time could be significant for doing some of this devil retrieval work, seeing the darkness but not being affected by it. Okay. I think I will leave the message here, guys. We're already at like 55 minutes. So I hope this was helpful in some way. Just take what resonates, or see how this pans out, or how this plays out. Pan could also be significant. When I said Pan, I was seeing like the goat version of the devil, like Pan. Interesting. But Pan is also connected to nature spirits. Hecate is Greek mythology. Astrology and zodiacs, it's all connected. I don't know how, but I'm going to try and figure this out, and I will report back. And if you guys have pieces of the puzzle, or you're interpreting this in a way that is particularly profound, or gives you this feeling of realization, please share that in the comments if you feel called to do so, and only if you feel called to do so. Otherwise, just keep it within you. It still goes up into the collective anyway, so we'll get it telepathically, non-directly. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you in the next reading. Bye.